Uji, hello, hello. I think you're muted.
I am, yes.
So to start with, my name is Margaret. I'm a part of the growth team here at Metabase. And with me today, Luis Paolini. Luis is our customer success engineer. He works very closely with Metabase customers and users. He helps them every day to tackle different questions, asks, any issues that may arise. So Luis knows Metabase pretty well, and today we're hosting our first ever tour of Metabase Advanced. So if you don't know, we also have another kind of tour of Metabase, which is an event for beginners, and I will share the link in the chat right now. So if you're interested to learn the basics around what Metabase is, how does it work, what feature does it offer, please visit us there. We basically, Luis does a presentation of the Metabase from the very, from scratch. But today we're going to focus on more advanced features. So if you're already familiar with Metabase, if you're using it, this is a good event for you today.
Thanks, Margaret, for the introduction. Welcome everyone. We have a lot of people today, and this is really good. I mean, we didn't know if we had to do like two separate webinars, one like basic and one advanced. And it seems like we have many people. So this is absolutely amazing. We have a tentative agenda, and this is that. I mean, the word tentative says it all. If you need to, or you would like us to cover more stuff than what we have on our agenda, please say so. We might be covering that today if we have time, or if there's anything that you need specifically for your use case of Metabase, just let us know. Maybe we need to do, more advanced or advanced version 1, advanced version 2 tours of Metabase. That would be awesome. We are super happy to engage with the community and speak about our features. But I just tried to build an agenda, and I'm going to share my screen now. I wanted to, again, I built an agenda. We built it with the team with some specific topics that are mostly what comes more often to our Zendesk ticketing system, or things that I see in the forums that come more often than others. So having said this, let me tell you a little bit of what we are going to share today. So for today, we have the following menu. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share my screen now. You should be seeing my screen. There we go. Do you see the slide?
I can see the slide.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. That's it. So what do we have for today? We have the following topics. So we are going to talk about the API, and we are going to do something with the API. Then we're going to talk about models. Then it's going to be caching, also permissions, but there's many things about permissions. So we're going to cover sandboxing and impersonation. And if we have a little bit more time, we're going to cover serialization. There's some things that we are going to cover that are available in all the versions we have, and some things that we are going to cover that are only available in the Pro or Enterprise tier. This is like permissions, sandboxing, impersonation, and serialization. Also, some part about the caching that we are going to cover. So please let us know if you have any specific questions about any of these topics. And also, if you want us to cover other topic, probably here or probably in another version of this Metabase Advanced talk. So, having said this, let me first go to the API section. So, whenever we talk about the API, you might have already been to documentation about the API of Metabase. This is like the first stop when you want to see what you can do with the API. Maybe you want to create a dashboard, create a question. Let me first tell you something that I always love to tell to every single user or customer is that absolutely every single thing in Metabase is an API call. Absolutely everything, every single thing. Which means that you can use the API for absolutely everything. You can use the API for setting up Metabase, as we have one of our documents, and there's something about the documentation. I have something else that I wanted to show you then about that. But you can use the API for everything: creating users, creating dashboards, questions, adding users to Metabase, or maybe adding a permission or removing it. Again, everything is an API call in Metabase. On top of this, which is the documentation, and you might see one of the, I would say, most requested or more a ticket that comes very often on our internal system is that they see that, I mean, users see this documentation and they are like, hey, I tried to follow your documentation, but I couldn't do what I needed to do. What we usually recommend everyone is the following. When you have your Metabase instance, and let me jump to my internal Metabase instance, the ones that I have running here locally, is try to, or like just open your Metabase instance and open specifically the network tab of your browser, right? So you'll see me a lot of times opening this network tab here, because the reason of this is very simple. When you want to see how an API of Metabase works, just simply go to your network tab and you'll see absolutely everything that Metabase is doing. In fact, I'm going to clean my network tab and I'm going to show you how the authentication works, right? If I want to authenticate to Metabase, it is as simply as seeing the network tab and seeing which endpoint do we call, right? If you click here, yep.
Sorry, just one thing. I don't know if your other screen is supposed to be seen, but we can see only the browser window.
Yeah, the browser with the network tab. I mean, do you see a section? Let me switch back to when I was. Whoops. Are you seeing my browser with the session call here in the network tab, or not?
No, I think you shared the browser window. That's why.
Okay, let me quickly share again. Sorry about that. And thank you for. And there. Now you do. Now you see my browser with a section on the right. Is this correct?
Yeah. I think so. I can see it at least.
Okay, let me go back again very quickly. I was saying that when you want to sign into Metabase, or again when something happens on your browser, there is an API call happening, right? I authenticate here, and I just see that Metabase call in order to authenticate. It called this endpoint over here /API/session. It did a post request, and it gave back to me an ID and the cookie, right, for my session cookie. You can see the payload that I used, and then absolutely everything that happened after this. Maybe you want to see this. Maybe you want to use a Python script or something else. You can simply just copy what just happened here. I can copy this as a curl command, a fetch command. Let's copy this as a curl command and use this in a terminal. I'm gonna share my terminal now so you can see absolutely everything. But again, this is pretty easy in order to copy what the front end of Metabase is doing. And once you do, maybe you create a question, you create a dashboard, you do whatever you want to do in Metabase, you can just simply, this is the reason why I wasn't showing. I was sharing just a window and not the entire screen. Okay. And now if I go to my browser and I show now you see my terminal, right?
Yep.
Good, nice. This is really cool. So now you can maybe go to your terminal and just paste what I just did, right? I just authenticate here. I copy this as in terminal session. I click on enter, and you see I can get the same response that Metabase gave me, the same header. So again, you can play with the API and you can do really, really, really magical things. When I say really magical things, and please don't use my password, please. This is here in plain text. When I say that you can do really magical things, I encourage you to go to one. I mean, it is my personal repository, but it's just for for I just did it for ergonomics. You can do things like this is a repository that I built in order for you to use this to get all the questions and dashboards and see which questions are relevant and which questions are connected to which database. And absolutely everything that you see here has been done by doing API calls, right? So this is a very interesting project that I just built with the Metabase API that uses Python to connect to a Metabase. I mean, authenticate, ask for the databases, ask for the fields, ask for the dashboards and the questions and the collections, and organize and build a graph about absolutely all the entities that Metabase has, right? And it organizes this so you can quickly see, again, if you change maybe a question, which dashboard is that question, which dashboard does that question belongs to, or maybe if you change a field in the database, which questions are going to be affected. So all that is done via the API. You can see the code here. You can see the authentication. You can also see other repositories in which, whoops, sorry about that, in which I use the API just for setting up an instance. For example, I just, let's use this, which is the serialization one. I use the API in a curl command to just um, I just authenticate Metabase and I create the first user. Again, all this is done via the API, and it's super simple to use once you see what the front end is doing with the backend. Just one last demo so you can see what is going on. Let's say that I want to create a question. I'm going to just go to new question. I'm going to clean everything here so you see the full picture. Let's say I want to do a count of orders by created at. I just click on probably visualize, and then let's click on save. Click on save once again, and look what just happened. I just, I did a post to /API/card with the following payload. You can see here the source, the raw source or something parsed. And what Metabase gave me is, a response, and it also gave me an ID of the card, right? So this card is probably card number 1, because in the API just sent a post request, and Metabase returned to me card number 1, right? So I did a get over here. So absolutely everything is done via the API. So as a wrap up for APIs, let's do as a wrap up and for takeaways, you need to think that first of all, the API is not yet versioned, so please drive with care on that. Again, we will version it in the future, not yet, but APIs can change from one version to another, so make sure you test it. You test your scripts once you move to a new major version. Something that is coming very soon, and I know that the product team is working on right now, in order to use the API, you need to send to the API a session token. That session token, right now, you get it once you authenticate to Metabase via username and password. But if you use right now single sign-on in any way, like Google, SAML, JWT, LDAP, any single sign-on that you're using right now, that session token comes after the authentication. So I would suggest that you either wait for this feature to be in or follow the same flow that you use for single sign-on. So that is the only way to get this the API token right now. It is coming soon, this authentication via an external, like Metabase will offer you to create users, and those users will be API only. It is coming soon, so just wait a couple more months. Everything is a resource, so dashboards, any entity that you see in Metabase is a resource, so you can create, delete, get it. Absolutely everything's a resource. And as we did here, always check what the front end is doing before you start your coding. Okay, if you have any questions around the API, just leave it in the chat. I'll cover those at the end of of this talk. Let's follow with models. When I hear about models, the first thing that comes to my mind, and let's jump again to Metabase, is easing. I'm gonna just for now take out the section of the right. When I hear that people are using models, they're using models to um, basically organize, data inside their Metabase instance. And specifically, it's a really, 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 really nice feature for organizing things to your users. I have this philosophy that final users, really don't care about where data comes from, right? Users wants just to fix or just wants to solve the problems that they're having. Probably, knowing how much we sold yesterday, or so where users are coming from, where that data comes from. It's another person's problem, right? Maybe it's a data engineer's problem, maybe it's a database administrator problem. So you need to ease that process for those users. One thing that many people, hit when they go and try to ask their questions is, sometimes you want to browse data and you see that you have all these offerings, right? Where is my data? Is this in orders? Or maybe I need to join orders to people to get the data that I need. A model is a really, really, really great feature for making something as simple as, let's join orders and people. Metabase is offering me this. By the way, version 48, which is coming next month, it's going to have a really, really nice additions to how we do joins and such, because we made major changes in all the processing. So wait for that. It's coming really, really nice. Maybe you can just join this, do some pre-joins, maybe do some custom columns, like a concat of state, something like a comma and the city. This is going to be state. That's the city, right? You do absolutely everything you want in the model, and you click on save. Orders plus people model. You transform this into a model, and from now on, people will be able to just click on new, click on question, and use this new model as their starting point. Metabase is handling, all the joins behind the scenes without any problem. So users now, you can just tell them, like, go to the model. Everything's there. You don't need to join anything. It's just there. Just use it. Models have other features which I would like to show you today, which are pretty cool. These features are, first of all, you can edit the metadata of the model. So again, in this model, it's pretty simple because this model is based on the table, and it's also done with a GUI question, right? So this model inherits all the metadata that comes from the tables, and Metabase knows what that metadata is, because it's basically inheriting those from the tables, right? From the semantic types that you define in Metabase. Again, if you don't know what a semantic type is or what a base type is, just let us know in the comments. We can cover that at the end of the talk. But this has profound implications of how Metabase not only builds the queries, but also renders the chart. And very, very soon, we are going to make models a first-class citizen in the same way a GUI or a SQL question is. By the way, SQL questions are going to become also a first-class citizen, which means that probably at some point in the future, we're going to do, syncing, scanning, fingerprinting of the model. The model maybe at some point in the future will become, something that will have the same relevance as a table in a database, right? So you will be able to have something that you built just for your users that will have the exact same relevance of a table, right? So maybe you will have filter values coming from models, and you can build a really, really, really nice scaffolding out of the models, right? So please pay a lot of attention to all this metadata here, right? Change the descriptions, maybe the names, formatting. Everything should be super simple, so your users can come to the model and create the questions as they want. Models have another really nice feature, which I'm also going to cover now, which is, let's say that I build a question out of the model, right? Maybe I want to see the sum of the total by the, let's say the source people are, right? Something super simple, which I can click on visualize. Metabase gets the metadata, knows that, this is a categorical filter, these are numbers, so it gives me a bar chart. And let's save this as question number 1, right? Question number 1, we got it. Let's not add this to a dashboard for now, but look what just happened as you made a question out of a model, right? Once you go now to this section, which is the model details, this is a really interesting part where Metabase is now doing some sort of lineage over the questions, right? So you build a model, and then questions are getting built out of that model. So now Metabase is tracking that. So this is really cool, right? I mean, now I know which questions are based on my model, so I know the impact of changing model. This is really cool. You can use it here. You can know the schema. You can know, things like, text is an unknown type. I need to go and check the semantic model of all this, because I'm not inheriting this data types very well. Again, now the models get transformed into some place where I can just, control metadata, control the lineage of my questions. This is really cool, and probably something that is not much used for in our customers' instances. We have one customer that, based on all this that you just saw, metadata, this model section that you just saw here, their users can go and see which are the columns, which is the name and the descriptions of the columns. So they have, all the data catalog inside Metabase that most users don't know that exists, but it's there. It's under the model metadata. One more thing that I didn't show, but I'm going to show now, is that models is the only place where you can go and create actions in Metabase. This is the possibility of writing back to your data warehouse. I'm not seeing this here because I haven't enabled actions. So I'm gonna enable actions right now. In order to enable actions, I just need to go to databases and enable model actions from here. Once I enable model actions, now I can write back to my database. So if you see now in this model details, now I have actions here, and I can create actions that are automated. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna where was the default? There should be some default actions that appear here, but I can create things like insert, update, and things that I can then add to the dashboard and make my users again be able to modify registers in the table, some records in a table, or build systems, right? Maybe approval systems or things that actions allow you to do. This is pretty cool. It's only in models. This is not in question. So take into account that actions are only based via the models. So coming back to my presentation, there we go. So the things you need to take away about models is, it's a really great option to abstract complexity. I'm going to cover something else about actions, about models in the next slide, but it's a great option to abstract any complexity, any custom columns, joins. Users don't need to know where that is coming from. All of that is abstracted. They will become first-class citizens soon, so stay tuned for that. I believe it's going to be massive for data engineers. You will have the possibilities of abstracting lots and lots of things based on that. I know what maybe rings some bells over your top of your head, which is when Metabase will support, joining between different data sources, right? Or maybe between different databases in the same data source, right? I mean, that we have some tricks under our sleeves for that. So let me know if you want to hear about that. But probably when that comes, models will be a really nice way of abstracting complexities of joining several data sources at some point, right? And it's the only place where you can see language. Cool. Let's move now to caching. What is caching and how does it work? So caching is probably one of the most requested tickets in our internal ticketing system. And It's because of something which is very simple. There are some queries that cannot run and will not run in a very short amount of time. When I say short amount of time, this is seconds, maybe at 1 or 2 minutes, right? So you need to have caching for replying to the users very fast, because if the users, no one likes to wait, and if the queries don't return fast, users will blame you for making things slow. So what is caching and how does it work? Caching is a really nice feature that we have, and we have two types of caching. We have what we call questions caching, and we have models caching. What is the difference between these two? Question caching is a way of telling Metabase that every single question that runs on more than a certain amount of time, Metabase will grab the results of that query and will save those results to the application database. This is very important because we don't have memory caching. We don't have something like a Redis or a caching subsystem. It's all handled at the application database. It's not gonna take a massive size of your database. In fact, you can regulate this here. You can put in kilobytes how many how many megabytes you want the size of the cache to be. I believe that the maximum is going to be 255 megabytes, if I'm not mistaken. Then we can test this out. But again, absolutely every single question that runs more than a certain amount of seconds, Metabase is going to grab the results of that question, and it's going to save that to the application database. Once that question, on average, again, and this is on average, once that question runs on average above that certain threshold, Metabase will not go to the data warehouse anymore and will fetch those results from the application database. So that will be a query to the application database, and that will return from the application database. The results will return, and the users will see the results, I would say, pretty instantly. So what does this mean? This means that, one, this type of caching will only return if the query is exactly the same. So let me give you an example. If Metabase does, and I'm going to go to maybe the SQL query, if you're caching the result of this query, and I haven't enabled caching for this query, but if I had, let's say that you have this query, which is right now cached in the question caching. Every single time you run this exact same query, and again, what is hashed is exactly this. Every single time that this exact query gets run, Metabase will return the results from the application database. If a user, for some, again, maybe they switch a filter, they change any filtering in a dashboard, something happens, and they change this question, this question will get pulled from the whoops, sorry, it's in capital letters. Every single time someone asks for this, this is not going to be pulled from the cache. This is going to be pulled from your data warehouse. The reason is because we added this where statement to the query, and this is a completely different hash. This is not the same hash at the question which is cached. And you might say, hey, Metabase, but this is a sub result. This is like less things. And inside this caching, you have these results, right? I mean, in here you have everything from the table, and here you have only a subset from California. So again, Metabase doesn't know that. Metabase will cache absolutely what is in here. And the reason is this is a completely different question hash. It's completely different, so it's not going to be cached. So this is question caching. It works really, really well for when you want to provide, let's say, an embedded dashboard, right? Embedded dashboard is a really, really perfect example. You don't put any filters. It's a static dashboard. You're embedding that to your users, completely static, the same query over and over again. You want to show, in a public website, some stats about your business, and the queries will be the exact same every single time. Perfect example for enable question caching. Every single query will go to the application database. Probably if you, again, have a database that charges you by time or by usage, like Snowflake, a BigQuery, you'll save a ton of money. This is pretty important for, that usage. We have customers that they do really nice hacks over question caching. For example, we have a customer that runs in a Databricks cluster, and it's Delta tables on Databricks, which, by the way, they run with a custom driver. No, sorry, I'm mistaken. They run with Trino, which is a partner driver, and Trino is connected to the Delta link, to a Delta link. Trino is a partner driver, which is in the cloud, and the Trino team is supporting that. The Starbucks team is supporting that. And what they do is, again, every single query that they do to their Delta lake is a lot of money. It's trillions and trillions of records. So what they do is every single morning, they go to Metabase programmatically via the API, and they hit the questions that they want to cache a few times till the cache is refreshed. They have a very, very high TTL on the caching. This is what they have. They have very, very high TTL, like a TTL that might cover probably an entire day, and that is the way that they manage to make the query to last as much as they can in order to save some money on their delta lake. This is pretty good. This is a pretty nice hack, and many more things are coming around caching. But for now, this is what question caching is. Let's move now to model caching. Model caching, it's another completely different breed. What model caching is that this is going to work at the data warehouse level. And what I mean data warehouse is that in here, when you enable model caching, Metabase will actually write back to your data warehouse. It will write back. So it will need permissions for creating schemas, creating tables, and every single time a model gets refreshed, and now I'm going to show you, and even I can show you what the query that it runs and everything. Every single time that there's a refresh on a model, Metabase will drop the table and will create a new one on top of that. Again, every single time the cache gets refreshed, Metabase will do a drop table, and it will do a select into for creating that. How does model caching work? So first you need to enable that. I'm going to put a custom. I'm going to put this. Don't do this back at home, please. This is like every single minute it's going to be refreshed. But just for the sake of doing this demo, I'm going to put this so it gets created really fast. I'm going to go back to the question that I just created. And once I click on the model, it will, one thing that I always forget to do after enable the model caching is also enable the caching back in the data warehouse, right? So I'm going to turn the model caching on. This is my local Postgres, and now I'll have this, model caching here. So I can turn model caching on, and once I do this, my data warehouse will have, let's see, the logs of this, Docker logs, Postgres, data one. I'm going to do a follow here so we know what is going on. And if you see in just a couple of seconds, most probably you'll see the query that gets run on this data warehouse. So right now, if I refresh this, Metabase is going to run this query. If you see right now from public order, so everything is coming for now from the database itself, right? From the data warehouse, from the original schemas and the original tables. Once this model gets cached, Metabase will create another table, and probably can show you that over here as well. Let me see if I can. That hasn't yet been refreshed. Oh, there. Let me quickly show you this. There we go. This is my data grip. So again, a normal SQL client. if you see what I have here is this data warehouse that I connected, and now Metabase has created another schema, which is a cache schema with two tables, a cache info and this table over here, right? So now every single time that I refresh this table, Metabase will go to the cached schema. If you see what is going on here in this query, you see that the from is a select asterisk from the cache, right? So it gets this from the schema. This is pretty important. You need to know. Then you can create, a model out of a model, and all that will be cascading, into something that gets pulled from another table, which is cache, and so on and so forth. But this is pretty important. You can. This is I always like to call this feature something like materialized views, but at the application level, right? So you don't need to go back to your data team and tell them, hey, can you build me a materialized view that refreshes, a certain amount of time? You can do this at Metabase level, which is pretty cool. So let's go back to the agenda and some caching takeaways. So question caching is AppDB, model caching is data warehouse. There's only a few databases that support this for now. Stay tuned, more are going to come in the near future. Model caching auto refreshes. So question caching does not. That's also what you need to know. You can do the hacking that our customer does, to refresh the question caching programmatically. Both can be combined. It's not exclusive. You can have question caching and model caching. And something really interesting is that for question caching, there's caching at the question level and also at the dashboard level. So you can go to a dashboard and say, hey, Metabase, I want you to cache all the questions in the dashboard for the next 24 hours, right? And Metabase will cache that for 24 hours. And that caching acts on top of the default caching that you define in the caching configuration. Take that into account. Again, this is not exclusive. Really cool feature, specifically for saving a lot of money and giving your users a faster experience. Last one, permissions. And this is going to cover sandboxing and impersonation. And we are not going to make it to serialization, but please, I want to have a couple of more minutes for questions. If you want us to have a specific talk about serialization, please let us know in the comments. We will cover that in probably the next webinar. So what is sandboxing and what is impersonation? Sandboxing is a really nice feature in which, let's go back here, in which you can make your users to see only the data that belongs just to them. Which means the following. Let's say that I have this people table. This people table, as I am an admin, it brings me, all the people from every single state, right? And this is fine for me. But more probably I have, some people that, a sales team, right? A sales team that needs to see only their leads from their, from their own portfolio, right? What we can do? Well, we can create users in the, we can create a group, right? Which is going to be the sales team. And inside this group, we have, we have someone else. I'm an admin, and I want to have, someone else that it's, has another email. And I want this user just to see people that, are from the state of California. I just want these people to just see that because, he's a salesperson from California, and maybe state, state belongs to, let's say state belongs to California. So this person belongs to California. I want this user to see only the things, only the people from California, right? I create this user. I assign this user to the group from sales, and now I can enable this feature called sandboxing, which will allow me to do things like, first I need to, put the old users to self-service, and then in sales, I go to the table and I want this person to see only the people from California, right? So Metabase gives me two ways of doing sandboxing. I'm just gonna cover in this demo the normal sandboxing, not the advanced sandboxing, which allows me to do things like column level security, and also allows me to do multi-level sandboxing, probably, an admin that needs to see all the records, and or probably, we have a customer that wants like a call center manager that sees all the records, and then there's a middle manager that sees just the records for their team, and then the call center agent that sees only their records. That is also available with advanced sandboxing, which is pretty cool. We have some documentation about it if someone wants that. So I'm just gonna cover the basic one. So what I do here is in the people table, I put the state column needs to be filtered by what the user brings us. The state belongs to parameter. This state belongs to parameter. I just add it as a parameter manually, but I can also add it programmatically via an API, via single sign-on attributes. I can do a lot of things there. I just click on save. I click on save over here. I click on yes. And let's check what this user has. Oops, I believe I have a 3.1. No, what is the? Sorry, I'm just checking which is the. This is my Grafana. I don't remember the email server of my stack. Just give me 1 second. Because I don't remember where I was running the email server of my stack, which I access this every single day, and I don't know why okay, this is interesting. I should have this thing running in port 2003. And I don't know why I'm not able to. Okay, give me just 1 second, because probably it's not. Sorry about that. It's probably a caching thing. Yes, it was a caching thing. Let me share again my screen. Sorry about that. It always happens, on demos. Whoops, I'm gonna share again. It always happens on demos, right? You do a demo and you get some quirks on what you're doing. Let's go back. There we go. And there we go. Right now, do you see my Firefox, right? You do. Let's copy this. Let's open this. This is like an email server that I have for testing stuff. This is where I sent the invitation to the second user, which is the sandbox user. Let's put some password to this user. Once this user logs in, look what is going on, right? The user now browses the data and sees only this table, but only sandboxed. What just happened? And this is pretty important. And I'm gonna show you what is going on behind the scenes. Every single time this user does, the refresh of the question, what Metabase is doing behind the scenes, and the user does not see this at all, is Metabase is sending a query to the database with a where clause that is injecting on the fly. See this here? Metabase is injecting a where clause on the fly. The user will not notice this at all, and this is entirely done by Metabase. Metabase is doing all this, query injection on the fly. You can inject, multiple where clauses in advanced sandboxing. Using a query for sandboxing, you can do things. Whoops, sorry about that. You can do things like, or statements. Like there's many things you can do, but Metabase is injecting things on the fly. I'm not gonna do a demo of impersonation, which is because I want to leave some space for the questions. But there's another feature that we just released. In fact, it's on version 47. This feature, which you see here, which is impersonated, is our new sandboxing type. This is really powerful. I love this feature, and this overcomes a limitation we have had for, I would say, since the beginning of the times. What is impersonation? Impersonation is a feature for sending to the database. And look what I'm gonna do here. I can go maybe to this person and edit this and add an attribute that says db_role, and this is gonna be, I don't know, sales from California, right? I can like send to the database the role in that this person will have, right? So I put db role here, and now when I click save, and the user, I haven't created this role, so this is not gonna work. You'll have to create the role in the database, apply in database what it's called a row level security policy. And when that happens, from now on, the person that we created will be able to go to Metabase, have row level security applied. So row level security will be applied by the data warehouse. I mean, by the data warehouse. The data warehouse is going to do all the permissioning work. And as this is done by the database, by the data warehouse, and not by Metabase, which is, injecting query on the fly, as it did with sandboxing, that user will be able to have native query editing. So we'll be able to have SQL question access and also row level security at the same time. This is pretty awesome. We put this new feature in the latest version. It works right now only on Postgres and in Snowflake. But this is pretty powerful. It's overcoming one limitation we have had from the beginning of the times, and I completely love it. It allowed users to do really wonderful things. So let me finish this, and we can go back to questions. So sandboxing and impersonation takeaways. Serialization is able to do row level security and column level security. It's all done at the Metabase level. Metabase is doing, the injection of the queries and changing the queries on the fly. Impersonation, it's only for now row level security. All of that is work at the data warehouse level. Oops, I put serialization here. I meant to put sandboxing. Very sorry about that. It's a typo. So sandboxing is great for separating tenants, right? So it will, one tenant, one group will be able to do one stuff. Another tenant from another group will be able to see another stuff. And hiding information, you can even, maybe hash an email or, like change information on the fly. This is really interesting. We have customers that are using sandboxing, for example, to change the time zones of date times. Some user from some time zone sees the data in the specific time zone, and another user from another time zone sees the data in another time zone. Really, really cool stuff. Impersonation is really good for separating and giving SQL access to tenants. That's a really good feature. And sorry, again, I put serialization here. It's another typo. This I meant to put sandboxing. So sandboxing is enabled at the table level, and impersonation is enabled at the DB level, and then you need to configure that in the Metabase section. Having said this, thank you very much, and let's open the space for the questions.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you a lot. It's been a lot of information. We actually spent 50 minutes, which is more than we usually do. Before we jump into the Q&A section, I just wanted to send a small link in the chat. If you could please fill in this very fast and short survey. It just has 2 questions. Let us know how you liked this event. Was it something that you were looking for? And if not, please leave the feedback so we can improve in the future. So coming back to questions, we have quite a few of them. So we'll try to, not spend a lot of time, but still answer. Let's start with the one going by order, how they were published. So, Luis, can we download dashboard as PDF using API?
Really good question. Right now, there's no APIs for, give me this dashboard. What you can do is authenticate to Metabase, and with a headless browser, something like Playwright. Some people use Puppeteer. Just click on the dashboard button, which is a feature that we also put in Forza. Like go and click on the dashboard, and you'll get the dashboard. Another thing that you can do is just get into the dashboard, wait till the dashboard finishes, and take a screen capture of that. We are at some point in the future we are gonna add that. We added just PDF download, and our current PDF download is just it is front end only, right? So it's like done in the front end level. That's why there's no API for PDF downloads yet.
Can we send dashboard as a PDF over the email?
Lots of people request that, and thank you for that. Not yet. By the way, brings me to the fact that we are remaking the entire visualization library right now as we speak. So that will mean that we will be able to do a lot of things in with visualizations and subscriptions in the near future. Near future, I'm talking about the next few months. And one of the things that we'll be able to do is the same chart that you see in the browser is going to be the chart that you see in subscriptions. So there will be no visual difference. That is probably something that many people are asking.
Thank you. And then there are two questions. They kind of, coming together and a lot of likes on them. They're about the models. And so what are the best practices around the models? Meaning, like, to be more clear, when would I use Metabase model versus when would I model things in my data warehouse?
Great question. Yes. So I would say that those two can play together. I would say that, when you have right now simple things like, for example, if you upload a CSV, it's going to be uploaded as a model, right? So that would be a model automatic. But you have simple stuff to join or simple stuff to do. Don't even bother your data team. Just, go to Metabase, do the model, it's there. If there are many other complex stuff, like I usually recommend everyone that has, logic on SQL, like lots of logic that, there are many case statements, CTEs, and that stuff. That is something that you want to have versioned. You want to have in a version control. I would strongly suggest that you put that in a database, as a, any data pipeline or a database model or a database view. So both can play together. It's not one is exclusive or another. But I would strongly suggest that if you have logic, business logic, or things that you want to version and control, move to a GitOps sort of process, not in Metabase models.
Cool. Thank you. And I think that answers next two questions about whether, when to use Metabase model versus DBT and how to control versions. Okay. And then Robbie says he would be interested to hear more about cross-database data sources analysis.
Yes, thank you for that. So right now, Metabase does not support, multi-DB connections or multi-data source connections. What do we usually recommend our customers? Like someone calls me, Luis, I need to do this, and it's critical for my business needs. So many data warehouses, I would say most of the most used ones, allow you to do things like, let me give you an example. In Postgres, you can use foreign data wrappers, right? So it's a Postgres connected to another Postgres. Redshift allows you to do federated queries, right? So it's a Redshift that connects to a Postgres or to another Redshift, to a MySQL, or to a Kafka. I know that they support Kafka, which we do not, right? So you would use Redshift as an engine to connect to a Kafka. We had a customer yesterday that needed the same thing for Snowflake. You would go to your Snowflake, you would connect to your database, the database that is connected to Metabase, and you can simply just, create a view in the database that does a set asterisk of another table of another database, right? So you can overcome all the limitation that Metabase has for, multi-database connection with just that, using a query federation engine, like, a Trino, BigQuery, even Redshift, or maybe Postgres, and also connecting from the schema or the database that Metabase is connected to, with views that connect to other sources. That is a really, really interesting way of solving these problems.
Okay, another one. How can I automatically refresh, rescan filter values on my dashboard whenever a new line is added to a table?
Yes, so you can do it via API, automatic, like every single time. So you can put a trigger, right? There's depending on the database that you you use. I believe that I don't remember if it was Redshift or even with RDS in AWS world, that you can put a trigger that calls a lambda. So you can do, every single time there's an insert, that trigger will fire a lambda, and the lambda will hit the Metabase API. Right now, there's no connection between whenever there's an insert, go and fetch the values again. Something that you could do the following. In Metabase, there is a way of populating the filters via another question, right? So it's not like just inherit the values. So what you could do is you could build a SQL question that it's a select, distinct from this column, and then tell Metabase every single time someone clicks in the filter, fire this query. So you will have the, all the values every single time someone fires that query. another hack of not doing all the code stuff.
Okay. And okay, let's see the next one. What if we cannot create models cache? Can the queries behind the models being cached so the model runs faster after first execution?
So the answer is yes. It's not going to be after the first execution because Metabase needs an average. So let's say that your model takes 10 seconds, right? You can put in questions caching, because a model is a question in the end, right? So in questions caching, you will be able to say, hey, after 1 second, just cache this. And after, on average, 2-3 times after the model runs, then that questions will run faster, right? Because it's getting pulled from the model cache. From the question cache, from the question cache.
Okay, and then the question regarding the permissions, I don't see this feature in the open source edition. It seems to be only available on the cloud premium version. So it is available not only on cloud, but on premium versions of Metabase, on Pro and Enterprise plans.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, and let's see if we have anything else here. I think the last question, if I haven't missed anything, comes from Paola. Do you plan to make serialization to cloud customer or will remain a self-hosted feature only?
Great question. Asked by probably most of our Pro and Enterprise customers in the cloud. So we do have that in our roadmap. Okay, it's not in the short-term roadmap that you see publicly. We know that it's a common request. What we have done, just like literally on previous version, is we did the serialization feature from the ground up. In fact, many people don't know, but before this new feature we made, serialization was only being able to run via a command. Now you can run serialization, like you can just hit an API and that will dump things. So this is like really nice hack that it's around. So right now we don't have it in the short-term roadmap. It's gonna come at some point in the future. So stay tuned. I can't give you a date for that, and but I know that it's a common request.
And Joseph just reminded me that I missed one question. So I don't know how deep we can go into that. Maybe we can cover it next time. Let us know, Luis. Can you please cover the segments and metrics part?
So thank you for that, Yusuf. I haven't covered that part. I haven't picked that up because of one main reason. The reason is segments and metrics are going to be redone in Metabase completely, which means that if someone is thinking about using metrics and segments right now, think about or try to grab that and put that in the data warehouse, right? So build the metrics and build the segments in the data warehouse, if possible. Again, the reason is we are working on segments and metrics. Probably it's coming really soon. I cannot say when, but it's coming really soon, which means that we are reworking how that works entirely. New features are going to come in that path of the code. So stay tuned. Really nice stuff, which I heard and I saw, but that is why I won't like to cover something. It's going to be replaced soon.
Okay, a few more questions just came in. So one of the most tedious work building dashboards is the need to have individual cards or questions before to add them to the dashboard. Would there be the option to avoid that so we can have cards in dashboards using a single model without saving them as questions?
Love that question, because that is something else that the team is working on. One of the most requested, I would say it's not the most requested stuff. One of the paths that we're working on right now is making life easier to creators, right? So Jesus is absolutely right? Right now, if you want to make a dashboard, you need to make cards, right? And every single card is a query. And let's say that you just have one query, right? And you want to just make 10 visualizations of that query. Right now, every single card will be a query. What if we could decouple visualization from query? Right? That is something that the team is working on as we speak. How we can separate that. So queries are, a set of queries like models, and then you say, visualizations are, this piece of the visualization is this other column, and so on and so forth. That is what the team is working on right now, which is going to be pretty cool. Also, by the way, if someone, I know that you're all advanced users. If someone was wondering or was, having a really bad time connecting filters to cards and dashboards, in the new version we're going to release, all it's going to be automatic. You add a filter, you connect one card to the filter, and all the cards will be populated with the same filter for ease of use. So thank you, the product team. If someone sees this, that's amazing. I love that feature.
Perfect. Thank you, Luis. I think we're going to take one last question and be wrapping up slowly because we are already over an hour. So last question, Luis. With sandboxed permissions, can I also write to the database?
The answer is no. Sandboxing is just for, again, Metabase will inject the where clause on the fly. So you cannot do, insert statements, insert or updates or deletes.
Awesome. Thank you very much for doing all the presentation. For us, thank you everyone who still with us up until the end of this webinar. It was a great session with a lot of questions. We recorded everything, so you're going to receive the recording and watch it again if you need. Check out our website, the event section. We have new events coming almost every week. So if you will, you can find something interesting to you too. Thank you very much for visiting us. Thank you, Luis, and I'll see you in our next one.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.